Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the Economic and Development Commission's meeting to order. Today's Thursday, July 11th, 2013. Do we have any comments on the minutes of the past meeting? Comments, changes? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Reports. Who would like to go first? Farmington Valley Visitors Association?
I always go first. She's going first now.
You need to go to the podium, right?
Oh, they want you to go to the podium so that we can record it.
Well done. Do as we're told, right?
Oh, boy.
I hate the podium. Okay.
The two don't.
Good, double that.
So you're on the film. Don't forget.
Just a couple of things. Sarah Nielsen, Simsbury Main Street Partnership. We are helping the town again with the annual report. It does feature the branding campaign it has for the last, I think, 6 years. Special thanks to one of our business owners, Rich Wagner from Imagine It Framed, because he supplied the photos that will go in the annual report this year. And they've been, both him and Ray Padron have been really generous in supplying photos for the town's report. Using the branding campaign, changing out photos saves the town a substantial amount of money, and it continues to go with the package of everything that Simsbury puts out. So it's worked out very well. We worked with the First Selectman's office to send out the events postcard. If you live in Simsbury, you would have received it in mid-June. It featured all of the things that are happening in Simsbury over the summer months, all of the concerts, Culture Parks and Rec, the car shows, things of that nature, hit every household in Simsbury. I think it was, actually, I'm sorry, I think it was the first week in June. So we've already been getting great feedback. Metro Beast came on board as one of the sponsors as well and was able to put out their concert menu. And Courtney has said that she's gotten a ton of feedback. They've gotten extra orders and things like that. So she's very grateful to be able to get that out.
Did that go to businesses too, or just the residents?
It just went to the residences. Although that's something we should think about for next year. We can talk with Local Color Inc. But when you do the list, right now it's just the residential list. We are handling vending for the Talcott Mountain Music Festival again. For those of you that don't know, Main Street Partnership has been doing this for, I think, the last 8 years. We started in partnership with the Symphony. The goal was to make sure that the businesses in Simsbury were represented on that field. Most importantly, the businesses that receive the most, I don't want to say grief, because they do appreciate the foot traffic from Talcott Mountain, but the ones that incur the most problems. And an example of that is J. Foster's Ice Cream. You know, when residents know that when there's a concert, especially, for example, the 4th of July concert, that they're less likely to come downtown for a 15-minute ice cream during the night of the concert because they know that parking is an issue. And so business has, will drop off for some of the businesses, Metro Beast, others. So Main Street works to put them either on site or also to do vending packages, picnic baskets, picnic packages, so that they don't lose any extra business. It's worked out very well, in the years that we've done this. The one thing that we do here is, why aren't there more vendors? And again, we're working with the PAC board and Bob Hensley, but when you have a bring your own in, which I'm not saying that that's an issue, it's the way it's always been for Talcott Mountain, for the Symphony, but when people are allowed to bring in their own food, their own beverages, you can only have a limited number of other food suppliers. We try to find things that people can't normally bring in from home. We've had pizza before, which is more difficult to bring in. Bobby Kane does the burgers and things because people won't normally grill, put it in their picnic basket and go. Ice cream, coffee, things of that nature. So we really tried to do a good job supplementing so that even if people brought their own food, there's something that they can purchase there. But the vending won't grow on site unless while there's still a bring your own policy in. I think I mentioned this, but for the new members, we are currently working with the superintendent of schools and the school system. And the goal is that Main Street has been thinking about this and planning this for a couple of years. And I thank Chris Barnett, who's not here, for some of her help. But one of the things that we have realized is that it's difficult as a realtor, especially realtors that are out of town, to explain the difference when they are showing people around, the difference between Simsbury and various other communities when it comes to just simply taxes. And that Simsbury really has quality of life opportunities that maybe some of the other surrounding towns don't have. And one of the most important things of that they're seeing are the schools, especially for the young families. They're getting a ton of people that are moving over from West Hartford that are looking for a little more bang for their buck. They can get more of a lawn. They can get more space in Simsbury than they can in West Hartford, and the schools are either comparable or if not better. Because realtors, which I never knew until I spoke to my board member, Katie French, and I think Liz will back this up, I guess realtors are not allowed to speak about the school system, which is interesting. I didn't know that until we had talked to Katie. And so they are allowed to hand out literature. And if you just look at the standardized test scores from Simsbury and some of the surrounding towns, it doesn't tell the complete picture. And so Main Street is working with the superintendent of schools, Matt Curtis, as well as Martha Hogan and Lisa Hebner, who we brought in. And what we're doing is we're going to be compiling a piece that is very similar to our Heritage Charm Adventure, but it's going to be a supplemental piece that realtors will be able to hand out when they're asked questions about the schools that will talk about the things that set Simsbury apart. And do some marketing. We've contracted with Dornenberg Group, Jeff Dornenberg, to compile this. And the goal is to make sure that we have a compelling piece that shows why Simsbury schools, and then there'll be other companion pieces, for example, the farms and some of the other big draws, but we're starting with the school piece because I think it's going to be the most involved. And I think it helps everyone. This will be a piece that the town will be able to use. This will be a piece that, our goal is that realtors will be able to use first and foremost. We'll be holding a realtor open house sometime in September. Realtors are the ambassadors. They're the first face that people see as people are determining whether or not they're going to live in Simsbury or Avon or Granby or some of the surrounding areas. Although the weather's looking a little ominous, just a reminder that the Simsbury Farmers Market did open. It opened the end of June 27th or 28th, that Thursday. We did have to cancel the next week because of inclement weather, but we are looking to keep it open today unless we have severe weather come through like we have in the past couple of days. It is a chance for Simsbury businesses, both home-based as well as farms and businesses, to showcase what they're doing. On a good day, we get maybe several hundred to 1,000 people that come through there from all over, all different towns. And it has also helped places like Simsmore Square. They have virtually 100% occupancy, and Lori Christensen, the owner, will tell you that a lot of that has been due to the activity of the farmers market, so it helps dually. Finally, just a couple things. You've seen the Discover Simsbury section that went out in the Hartford Courant. That is one of two special sections that we're doing. If you also saw, we've been working with Hartford Magazine. Simsbury was ranked in the top for their top towns for the size. Main Street worked with the town, with the First Selectman's office, although it's attributed to the chamber, that to write the two marketing pieces that came out in their error. They did still attribute it to the chamber, so we're going to be working with them on something in November because they're going to be featuring Simsbury again in November. And finally, the Taste in Simsbury is coming up. It's our 5th annual Taste in Simsbury. It's held every year at the Riverview. This is an event that is sold out every single year. It brings hundreds of people from everywhere. We get people that buy tickets from Massachusetts, from other states, other parts of Connecticut, as far off as about 2 hour and a half drive. It previews the best restaurants, the best offerings that Simsbury has, as well as Greater Hartford. And the goal has always been, as well as a fundraiser for Main Street, to remind people that Simsbury is a dining and entertainment mecca. It's been very successful. Again, every year it's sold out before the doors open, so just a reminder, that's August 29th. Tickets will go on sale shortly. We sell, again, every year. So that's it. Any questions?
What happened to the Art Walk?
Oh, that's right. You guys, you canceled last meeting. The Simsbury Art Walk, we sent something out. Main Street had everything lined up, and a special thanks to the volunteers, especially the volunteers that stuck with us after Linda transferred it over to Main Street. Everything was set. Our venues were set. Our entertainment was set. Unfortunately, we had chosen a date of June 22nd, and we did that purposely when the committee met, because it was graduation weekend, so you expect to have a ton of families here. It was also Harry Connick Jr., so there's a ton of people that were coming into Simsbury. We worked with both the Simsbury Open Studios as well as Shireen worked with the goods and services portion, like for example, jewelry makers. We did not get enough interest from the artist community to make it a go. We had 7 artists sign up because, and again, I think some of it was that some of them didn't want to sign up until the last second. You know, we have to do a certain amount of advertising, we have to do a certain amount of everything to move forward, and you can't do it with 7 artists that are committed. So we had a ton of people said, oh, we're interested, we'd like to do it, and we did have people suggest that, you know, they still want to keep it alive, they'd like to maybe do a fall date. It's a ton of work. It was a ton of work just to get everything in place. So we're reevaluating, I'm not sure, but we sent out a nice letter. You know, our volunteers, I think, were wonderful. The people that helped were really wonderful. Everything was ready to go, tourism, you know, everything. But we can't run an art walk with 7 participants. I can't commit to something like that. That's a lot of time and a lot of money to try to get another 30 people to make it a go.
You mentioned something about realtors not allowed to talk about the school system. Could you explain that, please?
Apparently, if you are asked about the school system, you are not allowed to give, maybe Liz can, you're only allowed to give.
By who's telling you this?
Some sort of realtor
Were really originated, whether it's, the Association of Realtors, it could be from there, I can find out. But we all know, we can give objective comments, you know, how many schools, population, I mean, although we're supposed to suggest to people, like for everything else, whether it's for predators or anything else, you know, to go and get the information online or give them the link. But they just don't want any, you know, a lot of us come from town, the kids have gone to particular schools. It's easy to say, this is a fabulous school, my kids went there, blah, blah, blah. You know, and you're kind of prejudicing and unfairly weighing one over the other. So they really don't want you to comment. You can comment on facts.
Yeah,
if
there's
it's
X
one
number of private
awards.
schools, X number of public schools.
Right.
That, I mean, that doesn't do it justice. So
Right.
being able to have something that instead of, you know, that highlights, this is really what sets Simsbury apart, and it's not the annual report. You know, the Board of Ed does their annual report, and they do that. We've talked with Matt Curtis, and we've talked with Martha Hogan and their team, and, you know, they have welcomed it because they really want to move up to that next level, and there's a ton of things. The engineering program is outstanding. The fact that Simsbury still has certain programs like the culinary arts program that other schools have lost is outstanding. The aftercare program is a huge deal. The full-time, full-day kindergarten, you know, those things. So we really are going to highlight and pick the best things that really set Simsbury apart from others, because you can only hand them, you know, next time somebody asks, well, you can't say something, you can hand them the literature. But I believe it's the National Association of Realtors.
It's among a number of things that we can't comment on, personal.
It has to do with steering, starting primarily in urban areas where people were being steered from one school district to another, and one school district being, you know, put above another, and it had to do with steering there. So it has to do with fair housing. It has to do with the whole redlining of certain areas. And so what's happened, it doesn't really apply to us that much, because if somebody lives in town, they go to one school, essentially. They go to, you know, whatever school area they live in. But it started more within the urban areas, and that's how it started. But it does apply to all of them.
And again, I think what it does is, and what we're finding out is, you have a ton of outside realtors as well. And I think Chris will admit there's even some people that she knows that are from Simsbury that have a hard time differentiating the difference between Simsbury. You know, if you look at Simsbury versus Avon, to the uninformed, people are looking at taxes, and they're just saying, well, I can get X number, you know, X more house in Simsbury or Avon than I can in Simsbury. And so what we really like to do is work with the ambassadors, the realtors first, and then, you know, the rest of the business community, but the realtors are those ambassadors at the first phase. Work with them to give them the tools that they need, because I think it helps the town. It helps, you know, you're seeing a ton of young families start to look at Simsbury, and why are they choosing other towns, and where can we help with the marketing. And also these pieces, as we've talked to Hiram and been in contact with Hiram, these pieces will help for other, you know, business retention and with the town using them as well.
One other question. Are you using your website at all to establish links to other not events, but other organizations in town?
Yes. And in fact, the other organizations on Main Street site are able to post for free, for no charge, and all of them do, which is great. Post the events that are happening. They link back to their own website. Good examples like the fly-in, things like that. And then again, what we did with the postcard is we were able to compile events from, again, Junior Women's Club, Simsbury Women's Club, for free to get that out.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Farmington Valley Visitors Association.
Thank you, sir. And I'm Nancy Anstey, the Executive Director of the Visitors Association. Before I get into my report, let me say that that's a fabulous idea. I ask all my towns for town information, town packets, maps, because the Farmington Valley Visitors Association represents 8 towns. When people are interested in what's going on in the valley or potentially moving here, and we put on our relocation hat, we can say those kinds of things that realtors can't and that maybe other people in towns can't do. One of the things that I will commend Simsbury on is that I have more information about the town of Simsbury than I have any other town. Because you are quite active, EDC is very active, Main Street is active, and you all work together. So it's really wonderful that I have a lot of information. That will help me a lot. Rather than me saying what I have written down on little pieces of paper. It'll certainly help a lot. Okay, on to us. We are in the planning for our 20th anniversary, which is 2014. I think I may have mentioned it before. We're almost finished with planning our gala. We are 20 years old. We're doing Roaring 20s. Great Gatsby. It will be the end of May, beginning of June. As soon as we have that information, we'll let you know. And we're planning 2 or 3 events to showcase our members throughout the year because it is our 20th anniversary. So that has weighed heavy on our minds. Part of the new Visitor's Guide for 2014 will have anniversary information. So putting all that together, it's keeping me running to try to get ads and trying to get information from members to try to pull this together before our Haunted Miniature Golf, which we begin discussing the end of this month, and that is October. In addition to that, we are working with the Dream Ride, which, as you know, is August 25th. Our Farmington Valley Film Commission just had a meeting a couple of days ago, and we will be having our fall mixer the end of September. We'll be discussing 1 or 2 independent films that are either in process or beginning to open, plus a couple of other things that Liz and I will be meeting on in the next week or 2 to get organized. Our Historic Sites lecture for the fall we're working on. And what we're going to have is talk from the watershed about the 400 years of the Farmington River and how it has impacted our 8 towns. So she will be trying to do signature information on all 8 of those. Date is November 3rd, but still we need to start planning on that. Other than that, the newest thing is that we were contacted by Jim Tully, Seasons Magazine, because they wanted to do a calendar page. I don't know who gets it. I have no idea where it goes. But in any case, there is a Valley calendar page. So he thought maybe we were the people to get the information for that Valley page. So we put it out, and we got great response from him. He put every event that was major in the Valley out in this past edition, and we'll be working again, so I will be contacting you and other people in Simsbury to make sure that great things that are happening October through December end up in that magazine. And other than that, that's where we are. Questions?
Thank you. Questions?
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item number 4, status of the marketing study by Fairweather Consulting.
Morning. The marketing study is going along well. The Peter Fairweather's been down 2 or 3 times to have public sessions with the committee that's guiding the study, and also to talk to a number of times to talk to local businesses in the area. Peter's made a number of specific contacts to talk with a number of groups. He was disappointed in that he'd contacted all the businesses in the Herman Drive area and has not gotten a very good response from them. He's left phone messages with them. I've given him the contact information for all the businesses that we have listed there, and he wanted to talk to them directly about what their views were in terms of opportunities and constraints with regard to the town. So he's focusing on trying to talk to as many of the businesses in town as he can with regard to marketing. And he's indicated to me that he'll be back shortly with his findings on his survey of talking to people. He also indicates that in the next month they're going to finish up the phase 1 of the study that they started. This is just phase 1 of a 2-phase study. We hope that we'll be able to get money for the phase 2 study for next year. We'll see what happens with that. But again, they're focusing on small manufacturing, outdoor recreation, tourism, retail. As many of you have heard at the meetings that we've already conducted, has been their focus. They're focusing on the overall continuation and expansion of the brand image of the town, the authentication, that is what's true about this place. And the progress of the study can be followed on the SimsburyStrategy.com website that they've set up. The SimsburyStrategy.com website was set up a while ago, and it's still receiving comments from people as this study goes on. So if you have any comments about it, or if you want to find out what's going on with that study, please take a look at that website and either contact me if you have a question, or contact Peter Fairweather directly if you would rather do that, and let him know what's going on. But that's where it is. We expect to finish this study up in no later than end of this month or early August, probably with one more public meeting and talking about in terms of where the end of phase 1 study is. Peter's also contacted the realtor that's working with the Hartford as far as the Hartford land use study is concerned. So we're trying to coordinate and use that money sort of synergistically without losing any effort there. Part of that study is going to be a big marketing effort as well. So he's aware of who that is, and we want to make sure that those people work together as well. So that's basically it for the marketing study. Mark, I didn't know if you wanted to hear about the Village District study that's going on at the same time.
Sure, please do.
Okay. Village District study is going really well. There's been two public meetings so far. Last one I think was June 18th or 19th in the library. The next and the third public meeting will be on August 8th at 6 p.m. at the library in the program room. That study, initially the first public meeting had to do with sort of visioning in terms of what people thought about in terms of it's essentially the northern Weetog area, from 185 up to Powder Forest Drive is the area that they're focusing on. And the first session was on visioning. The second session was on design. And you may notice, if you've looked at our town website lately, that all the slides from that second meeting are on the website under Weetog Village District Study. Really interesting presentation, really nice graphics, a lot of really good ideas. We've tried to contact the businesses in that area, and they've worked with us as far as ideas in that process. Mitchell's have been there. Simsbury Inn has been involved in that process. A number of the other business folks have been involved in that process as well. So if you get a chance to take a look at those slides that are on the town website and have any comments or questions, please let me know. The third meeting will be having to do with the regulation itself, the village district regulation itself. The consultant in this particular study has really gone overboard, and they've certainly, we've gotten our money's worth. Our very good amount of work has been done over and above what the original grant amount was for this particular money grant was. The third section, as I said, third meeting will have to do with the regulation itself. That'll be the discussion of this meeting on August 8th. And then ultimately, that'll probably sometime in September go to the Zoning Commission for consideration, be referred to the Planning Commission and other groups, Design Review Board, this group, for comments probably before it actually goes to the Zoning Commission for public hearing. But the idea is to establish a village district in that area that would, in a form-based code, would allow essentially development to proceed very quickly if somebody comes in with a plan that meets what the village district regulation asks for. So that's where that one is. We should finish that up in August as well.
Questions?
How much are these studies costing, and who's paying for it?
The village district study was $15,000, and that's our money, planning money, that we got allocated from our budget last year. That study, as I said, if you take a look at what's been done so far with that study, it's unbelievable the amount of work that they've cranked out. The firm that's doing that is Carr, Lynch and Sandell out of Cambridge, Mass. Kevin Lynch is probably one of the foremost city planners in the country, and the firm is well respected in the area. The amount of work that they've done in terms of design and engineering, town planning, is incredible. That's the village district study. The marketing study, Dave, is phase one of a study that we originally, this committee had asked for, and we talked about trying to do for around $75,000. So all we were able to allocate from our first year of that study was $25,000. So phase one, that is the study that's being done this year, is a total of $25,000, and that's all town money. I applied about a year ago to the state for a steep grant for the other $75,000 to finish this study up, and have not heard back yet from the state. Can't get an answer from the state as to whether that's going to be granted or not. I've inquired several times. The state has told me that they'll have an answer for us next week. That was actually 3 or 4 months ago, and I asked them again, we'll have an answer for you next week. I imagine if they haven't contacted us, they're probably not going to give us the money, so I'm not counting on it, certainly. But I'm looking for other sources for that money as well to try to finish that up to get phase two done. One of the really critical things about the marketing study is that we think it's really important that this be dovetailed with the Hartford study that's going on as well. We want to make sure that those fit together, and that we're not sort of duplicating efforts with regard to the work that the Hartford's Realtor is doing at the same time. That's going to be actually a national, if not international, marketing effort, and so we want to make sure that, that we coordinate those two studies. So total, we had $40,000. That's the answer to your question.
The Hartford study is a separate study where the town is putting in $30,000 and the Hartford's putting 170. I forget the numbers, but somewhere around that.
The total study is 175, and the amount of money that we have is $30,000. Correct.
And what's the firm that's going to handle that?
We're down to. I was going to talk about that next. We're down to.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We're down to 3 firms. We interviewed last week. Was it Thursday? Last Thursday, interviewed 3 firms. 3 very different presentations. I sent around the summary sheets earlier this week, and actually I think end of last week, and asked people to rank the consulting firms. We're in the process of tabulating those right now, probably by Friday, which is I guess tomorrow, isn't it? By Friday we'll probably have made a selection and notify them. So I don't know at this moment who's going to do that, but we're down to 3 final firms. Alan was there and Mark was there. They may want to have some comments on what they heard at the presentations. Might be interesting.
Just to go back to Dave's original question, I also served with Hiram on the Weetog District Committee, and Carl Lynch, we're getting, for $15,000, we're getting incredible bang for our buck in the scope of what they're doing, the outlines of cooperation of businesses, and the linkage into the rest of Simsbury and the entry point. I'll tell you, the money is well spent in that area. Do you want to go into Hartford, and maybe Mark and I could overlay on that? Or?
Well, maybe in the interest of time, because we have some people presenting, maybe perhaps...
I'll only stay later. I'll stay later if you want. If you're at the end of the other presentations, I'm happy to go back.
One question, people have asked the status of Big Y. I've had a number of people ask where that stands at this point.
It's the first question of the day, but only the 55th one I've had this week.
Right.
The DOT has all the information that they need for their permit. We're told that the permit should issue any day now. That's completely done. There are a couple of minor questions remaining with regard to easements. That is, if you remember the plan, they're going to enter in their own driveway. There'll be a new traffic light there, essentially opposite Kane's Market. Use their parking lot. And people would be able to go out that access way as well. Deliveries would come in, go behind the store, and then probably exit out onto the driveway that is used by the skating center, which is town property. There's an easement question that the town attorney is working on right now as to whether the town can allow that to happen. Town attorney is working on that question now. As soon as that's resolved, they're ready to go. My suspicion is, short answer is, I expected them to start excavation and development in August.
Does the state have a timeline when an application's put forward, when they must act, like our zoning does when a
No.
So they can go on until hell freezes over, huh?
I can tell you this, that application was submitted in October. This is the new streamlined process, and we still are waiting for that permit to issue. It's no secret, frankly, very frustrating
They
process.
better not
No
put a
question.
super streamlined process in, right?
I have no comment on that, Dave, other than
The whole
you can
thing-
imagine what my
The whole thing,
answer is.
Hiram, is ludicrous.
Yeah.
They've known we're gonna do that, or that project's been pending for 3.5 years. So, you know,
It still is going forward, though, I think, which is the question a lot of people
I
ask.
hope you're right.
So if we, once that we go through this presentation, if people want to, we can talk about the Hartford
Sure.
a little bit more.
Absolutely.
On number 6, about 5 years ago, this commission was talking about the Simsbury Meadows area and the potential for both entertainment, which we have with the band shell, as well as recreation. And going back to the Fairweather Consulting, one of the growth areas that was pointed out for this town is recreation, arts, entertainment, and recreation. And looking at that, we have a beautiful river. We have now the East Coast Greenway, the bike path, and hiking trails. And I'm very pleased this morning to have Simsbury Free Bike come in and address their efforts and the bikes that you can loan out and use, and their view of how that has a positive economic impact on Simsbury when that happens. So this morning, we have Patty Jacobus and Ken Messier, and is Steve showing up? Okay, so with that, they asked if you could go to the podium. So this, were you being recorded and on camera? So they're going to discuss their program and how it affects, they think it affects the town of Simsbury. And either one can go first.
Is this one item or 2, 6 and 7?
Well, that's the opening, and that's the...
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the invite. We appreciate getting a chance to talk about some of the things that we've done over the last 3 years. I will talk very quickly about Simsbury Free Bike and how it interlaces with all the other biking activities that we're working on in town. We are part of CAMP, the Children and Adult Mobility Project, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. Simsbury Free Bike actually started in 2011, and some of you may know that we had 6 bikes at Andy's Supermarket, the former Andy's Supermarket. At the end of the season, we had 150 riders. Pretty good story. The bikes were, we call them Frankenstein bikes. They were given to us by the police department. We painted them blue. One of our directors had blue fingers, looked like a Smurf. We've since sort of evolved to the point where today, beginning in the 2013 season, we have over 50 bikes in 6 towns in 13 locations. And right now, our ridership to date, with May and June only, we're already at 400 riders. So we probably will exceed 1,000 to 1,200 riders by the end of the season. Now, the real story about the bike program is, number one, we've had great response from the town businesses. We have a lot of sponsors. The Ensign Bickford Foundation was actually our underwriter last year, kept the bikes on the road. Other towns have been sort of inspired by what we've done. They started bike advisory committees. The big story, though, is that 71% of the people that come and ride these bikes are from outside of the town in which the distribution center is located. So, for example, if they borrow from Fitzgerald's, 70% of those people coming in are from Derby, Middletown, Manchester, Groton. They come from all over the state. We've had international visitors. We also have a program with the Simsbury Inn. They pay us a fee. We have 4 bikes at their location. Everyone there is obviously from out of town. They're all visitors to Simsbury. But if you want to talk about the impact on business, talk to Jan Losey. She is just thrilled with this program. She said it's such a wonderful amenity for her guests to come to town, and most of them will ride into town, maybe grab something to eat, walk around town, maybe do a little shopping, and enjoy the trail. Many of you know that in 2011, Simsbury, or actually 10, we were designated as a bronze level bike-friendly community by the League of American Bicyclists. We reapplied in 2012. We got the same designation, but quickly we put together a non-official committee. It's called the Bike Advisory Committee. It's a combination of bike advocates and town officials that gather once a month at the library, every third Thursday of the month, and we talk about how we're going to attain silver recognition. And the big question is, why should being recognized as a silver bike-friendly community be important to Simsbury? Well, many people that are bicyclists or cyclists, really serious bikers, they watch the designation list every year, and that's how they schedule their vacations. They want to go somewhere where they know that the town is bike-friendly. They can go out, shop, and know that there are bike racks in town where they can lock up their bikes. We're not there yet. We have a lot of work to do. And the reason I say that Simsbury Free Bike Program and all the success we've had to date is a very small part of the overall bike-friendly community initiative that this advisory group is putting together. Becoming a silver level designated bike-friendly community brings lots of dollars to town. There are case studies after case studies after case studies about how it's transformed small towns, how cities like New York, Boston, Chicago, and Portland, and Minneapolis, and Madison, Wisconsin have seen the impact on their economy and on businesses. It's just a great story. So I won't take too much more time to talk about it, but I think that there is a great opportunity going forward to maybe start mixing minds a little bit between the bike advisory people, the land trust, Economic Development Commission, and some other like-minded people to say, how can we take the cycling and the bicycling and the tourism piece of it and integrate it into some of our bigger plans. A lot of work's already been done by the town, and this is not lost on the folks in Town Hall. A lot of great work has been done, but there is still a lot more. Every time we apply to the league for this designation, there's a very rigorous list of things that they expect from a city or a town that is making itself inviting to cyclists. And even when you fail at getting that recognition, they give you a fabulous feedback report that really outlines in very clear detail how to get to the next level. So based on that feedback report that we got this year, the group has put together a list of about 100 and, well, about 10, but they're made up of pieces, objectives for 2013 in terms of what we need to do to become more bike friendly. Probably the most important thing in town is to get more people in town to realize the impact of the biking can have on our town. Low impact in terms of natural resources and whatnot, but high impact in terms of economics. So making biking more important to more people, positioning Simsbury as a real destination where we can stop along the trail. I was biking along the trail. I was at the south end of Simsbury, and some people asked me a question. They said, gee, do you know anything about this trail? They were ready to stop. And I said, do you realize that Simsbury is just 5 minutes down the road? It's a wonderful place to stop. There's, the cell phone tour, there's the history, there's the Drake Hill Flower Bridge. They had no idea. We have no wayfaring signage anywhere in town when it comes to all these great landmarks. People are coming here with the trails map coming from the Farmington Canal, Heritage Trail map that the Trails Council puts together, but there's really no, it's the map of the trail, that's it. So I think there is just so much that can be done, especially if we take these groups and put them in a room together and just sort of brainstorm the kinds of things we can do to bring it to the next level for Simsbury. Another big piece of our objective is to have a bicycling plan for Simsbury. You don't get or attain silver designation without a concrete, detailed bicycling plan. And frankly, I don't think the Bicycle Advisory Committee should do it. At least they should not do it alone. They should do it with the help of some other groups within town. Yes?
What is a bike plan?
A bike plan, well, it talks about how do we move forward with creating a safe, well-connected network of streets and roads. For example, our trails should start in neighborhoods. Every neighborhood in this town, that's where the trailhead should start, so that families can safely find their way to the bike path and other destinations in town. And one of the things that we have as one of our objectives for 2013 is to map out exactly where we have good, safe connections and where there's opportunities for those safe connections, and identify what they are, and then prioritize them in terms of how valuable they are to the highest number of users in town. But if you've been to Portland, or if you've been to Madison, or, I mean, even small towns all over, Washington, when you walk into a bike-friendly town, you know it. You can see it. You see bike racks. You see people on bike shopping. We have all the assets to make it happen here. We've got a trail running through our town. Trails have transformed small towns around the country. Getting the backside or the front side of Iron Horse Boulevard, opposite Hot Meadow, getting those filled so people can bike over. Right now, it's a line of trees. No one sees what's there. It's gorgeous. But we need to come up with some ways to get people off and into town. So there are lots and lots of things going on. I mean, we have what we think is one of the most unique bike programs, not in Connecticut, but in the country. The CAMP program has the Simsbury Free Bike Program, which is multi-town. We don't know of any of the multi-town programs. We've taken our bike program and we've wrapped it around the trail. The trail goes 80 miles. I don't know how many have been on it. It goes from Yale all the way up to Westfield, Mass. And will eventually connect with Northampton. It's part of the East Coast Greenway, which goes from Calais, Maine to Vero Beach, Florida. There are bikers coming from all over. But we have adaptive programs as well. Ken has his adaptive hand cycles and power-assisted trikes in our shop as well. So we have our motto is everybody rides. We want someone who needs extra equipment to be able to ride with their family. They can borrow one of the power-assisted trikes or hand cycles, and then the rest of their family can borrow free bikes. We're right across from the trail. It's safe. It's easy access. It's a great way for active families to get out and do things. So I don't want to take a lot of time. You might want to say a few things.
Could I,
Yep.
Anybody else have a question?
One. First of all, I just interject that during the Hartford meetings, several of the consultants pointed out how ahead of the curve we are in our biking trails, Rails to Trails program. And
Simsbury or Connecticut?
Simsbury.
Yes.
And how it is they believe, a growing trend in our country.
It's the new golf.
Maybe, but it seems to go beyond that. It seems to go that younger people, say in their 20s or 30s, want an environment they can bike to work, live in a place, go to the village, go to their work on bicycles.
I have two 30-something kids, and both of them, we've had this conversation over and over again. They want to be able to walk. I mean, we know how important a walkable downtown is. It's the same thing with bikes. We don't want to get in our cars anymore. Young people don't want to. It is a growing trend. The whole country club martini, young people golfing has become the kids who want to bike and walk. It's a shift. We have to acknowledge it.
And a question I do have, to attain a silver or gold status, are these communities that have that more warm weather climates? Because that was
Minneapolis
a thing in our winters here. You ain't going biking.
Minneapolis was designated as the best bicycle-friendly community by Bicycling Magazine, not by the league, but by. They have done an absolutely fabulous job. Boston just earned a silver designation.
So weather, climate
has nothing to do with it. We had people. This is funny. I was down at Fitzgerald's, and I was picking up the waivers and talking to the gal that does all the renting of the bicycles. And she said, Patty, she goes, it's amazing. These people walked in, it's pouring rain out, and they rented bikes. And I said, you can't bike, it's raining out. They said, we're from Seattle.
What kind of budgetary constraints do you see, this year or the next year that would hinder going to the next level or fleshing this out in a bigger way?
Well, I think if we're just talking free bike, or are we talking, how do we start making different choices about how
I would say free bike for one, and I don't know if you want to comment on the bigger picture for the town.
Well, I mean, free bike, our biggest expense really is insurance, which runs about $2,000 a year. $2,800 a year. It's a combination of both the groups. And then obviously, safety is a top priority. We want to make sure we have good chains, good tires, good brakes, and we're an all-volunteer army. We have 2 mechanics who are professional mechanics that work on a volunteer basis, and basically 2 other people with a couple of people that kind of come and go. Keeping those bikes safe, so we need tires, chains. We do get some donations, but it costs us about $5,000, maybe 6 to 7. It depends on how many bikes we're putting out. We made a big leap this year, moving from 30 bikes or 24 bikes to 50 bikes. Things have gone pretty well, but finding the next Ensign Bickford is on the list. We've applied for a number of small grants, but we would love a professional grant writer to help us, or some leads on grants. It's all volunteer. We do sell some signage on bikes to local businesses. We've been pretty successful there. We do take donations of bikes. We either put them into the fleet, or we strip them down and use them for parts, or we sell them. And when we sell them, we take the money and put it back into the program. But,
what about signage? Can the town do a better job on signage for businesses, for information about the town?
well, we've had that discussion at our bicycle advisory committee, and it's somewhat it's an interesting topic because we have the Trails Council that has some thoughts about how it should happen. The town certainly has some thoughts on what's appropriate, and we don't want the trail to, become a commercial zone with signage. It has to be tasteful, it has to be, minimal, but it has to get the job done. But everything that I've read and seen in towns that are bike-friendly, wayfaring signage is really important. How far it is to Massachusetts, where the town center is and how far it is from you, where you can get food, where there are rest facilities. We have none of that. For example, when people get to the church in the center of Farmington across from the old Webster Bank, the trail zigs and zags. Now, for us, we're local. We know where it goes, but I can't tell you how many people I've bumped into that are still scratching their head thinking that's the end of the trail. We just striped the Ensign Bickford area to make it a little bit safer, but there's still some signage needs, I believe, along the trail, both for safety and for wayfaring. We have some great things going on, in town. The cell phone tour, Drake Hill Bridge, the Garcia Bike Rack. We need more of those kinds of things to direct people to. So I think wayfaring signage would be very helpful. And then getting those neighborhoods connected, I think, is another big piece of it. But we would love to have, some different kinds of thinkers involved in our planning, so it isn't just bike advocates and the town people. We would love to have, people from maybe this commission, the land trust, to help us with some broader thinking on it, on how it should be handled.
You mentioned your insurance costs
Yes.
on this. How does that factor in with the town's liability on this type of program?
We're not a town program.
No, I don't mean yours, but is the town insured for this type of thing?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
You mean the free bike program?
Well, the town is helping sponsor some of this.
This is all nonprofit.
Very careful. I was sat on the committee that ended up making the decision to move it to a not-for-profit because I think one of the issues that the town attorneys had is if somebody gets injured.
Yeah, right. Who's going to
the
get
liability and
Right.
everything, and that's why I think the town has been very careful to be supportive of this program, but at the same time understanding that it's a very separate.
So town council has looked at this and given a blessing to the whole program?
I don't think they've had to because it's not part of the
We're an independent
town's
nonprofit
program, so they haven't.
I'm not referring to your organization. I'm just talking about, God forbid, an accident, et cetera, and it's on town land if it could be, and how that all factors into this thing. As long as the lawyers have looked at it.
I don't know,
What
Dave.
about an
Actually, it's a good
automobile
question.
accident?
Yeah, it'd be the
What
same
about an
thing.
automobile accident? Is it town liable?
Well, except an automobile accident,
But
you
it's
have
a
an
little.
ownership
It is a
of
little
the-
different.
But
I
bikes
don't know.
are
That's a good
vehicles.
question. It might be something. I don't know if the town attorney's been asked to weigh in.
I can't speak to that directly, but I do know that, we work very closely with KERMA, which handles our risk insurance. And so I believe conversations have been had with them. And, the town is always at risk. If you trip on one of our streets, we're at risk.
Sure,
If you
the-
trip on our sidewalk, if you ride on our
The deep
trails.
pockets guys are always at risk, no question about it.
But I believe, you're correct in stating that part of the reason it goes through the nonprofit is to help with some of that liability and risk sharing. So that's one thing. I'll just follow up quickly on what Patty said about access to the trails. One of the things we're working on currently right now at Latimer Lane, there's this wonderful trail about 500 yards from the school, but there's no way you can't get there from here. So we've begun the process working with the Chief of Police, Rich Zawitsky, Latimer Lane staff and parents, PTOs, to try and do a connection there, because that's a natural connection. There's a trail right there, but you can't get there from the school without driving in the street. So that's a simple, low-hanging fruit that we've begun the process. But Patty's exactly right, and that we know that not only from common sense, but having done the shred, where they recommended that we make the east-west connections to the trail so that neighborhoods can connect. And it's not just about fun and recreation. It's about attracting people to live in this community for the lifestyle they want. It's attractive to businesses who see that the residents can get into town and get to them. So there is an economic component to all this, and we're excited that we're going forward. And I just want to thank Patty and the whole thing for all your efforts. It's been terrific to work with you.
And any of you are invited to sit in on one of our Bicycle Advisory Committee meetings, third Thursday of each month in the library. We always like to have, new voices, and your thoughts on what we can do to move some of these initiatives forward.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to comment on a few things that are still happening that the commission may not be aware of. One is that part of the bicycle advocacy has been a Bike to School program, which we were very involved in this year with Latimer Lane and Tooten Hills. And we're working with the school system to expand that to all the schools next year. It's a program that teaches 3rd and 4th graders how to ride bikes and gets them involved in going back and forth to school. So part of the whole thing with the trails is getting people tied into the school systems so that you can get from the trails and get from homes to the school systems. The other, one of the other items for the silver level is that our concentration to date has pretty much focused on the roads and the trails. And one of the big areas that we can expand into in town is the mountain bike trails. There's a lot of open space in town. There's a lot of people that do mountain biking, and it's a huge sport on a national basis, which could bring recreation dollars to the town. There's a lot of acreage out there that could be used for mountain bike trails that are either town controlled or land trust controlled, or but that could be available to us. I just wanted to mention those two specific programs. Children and Adult Mobility Project is a nonprofit here in town that's been around for about 10 years. We're very small. We're all volunteer organization, and we deal in adaptive sports. We do sled hockey in the winter out of Westminster, and we do adaptive cycling, and are trying to do more adaptive sports. We also do a lot of biking for injured soldiers. That's our main focuses at the moment, and we were the nonprofit that did the bike sculpture.
Ken, you mentioned mountain biking. I know there's a lot of mountain biking that happens along the ridge already. Have you looked at ways to connect the trail to that mountain bike system?
I'm not the one that's been looking at the mountain biking. Some of the other people on the council from the Simsbury Bike, he's our mountain bike expert.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that sounds like a lot more low-hanging fruit than trying to get the land trust or the town to build trails. You've got trails, show the direction.
The trails, actually, there's a lot of trails that are out there. They're just not marked. It's similar to the other signage. There's no marked trails anywhere. The paved trails aren't marked, other than mileage is marked and the town lines are marked. And then there's
marked in marketing.
We also think, and I've had a few discussions with Mark on this, that there should be more of a recreational component that combines the assets in town with the open land trust, with the bike trails, and with the Farmington River that comes through, because they're all recreation items that bring people into town, and there should be a way to combine those when you bring in outside people into town.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. And I hope to work with you folks in the future and how we can better make that integration between these various components, since it's been pointed out by Fairweather that recreation is a big component and it is an economic driver.
I can send you some links if you just want to do a little research on it. I mean, there's been some really good work done summarizing the economic story behind small towns and cycling, and it's just
if you could do that,
a great sort of background a foundation to start
Yeah.
from.
If you can do that, I'll share it with the commission. So, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for inviting us.
Item number 8. In years past, a lot of people go on vacation in the month of August, and we have decided not to hold an EDC meeting. So, will we have a quorum, or will people be on vacation next month? Do we want to have an EDC meeting?
What would the date be?
The date will be
8?
the 8th of August.
I will not be here.
I can make it.
No.
No?
I'll be here.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have our normally scheduled meeting on the 8th? Okay. To get back to the Hartford charrette, do you want to talk about the various presentations were there, or some of the issues?
Without
Since
getting
it is
into
a big...
Without getting into the specifics of each firm, I would simply tell you this, that there were 3 presentations at the Hartford in their all-purpose, multi-purpose room, very nice facility. Hartford was also there. At least 2 of their real estate people were there. Their real estate agent also had two people there. So it was well attended. The firms were very different in terms of their approach. I think that this is a lot different than the approach that was taken for the town center, where there's sort of a suburban town center infill. This is a different situation where marketing is really key to this whole approach. It's a much different setting in that it's not in a town center. It involves a 638,000 square foot facility that already exists, and a piece of 40 acres of open space, which is next to that, just north of that. So the public opinions, the town opinions, are going to vary widely as to what ought to happen with that. I think that everyone is quite realistic in terms of thinking that there's not a single developer, single user that's going to move into that facility and just the way it is. It's just not, probably not very likely, and the real estate people admit that as well. So the 3 different approaches that the firms took was very interesting, and people have been asked for their evaluations. I need 1 or 2 more back, and I'll tally those up and get those results back to Mary, as I said, this week, and then make a decision in terms probably either Friday or Monday in terms of getting an offer to that consulting firm to provide information to go ahead. One of the key things that we need to do in order to make sure that the Hartford is on board with this as well is to make sure that a major benchmark is reached in September. They need to know, they need to have a direction, they need to have an idea as to where they're headed. You may remember that the last time we did a shred, it was about a year in getting ready for that. It took a lot of work, a tremendous amount of time. This is a very, very tight, very aggressive time frame. So we've got August, and then we've got to have something produced by September. And each of the firms has been made aware of that, and has been specifically asked, what benchmark could you provide by the end of September that we're looking at in order to make sure the Hartford's on board with this process? And they provided that information back to us, and that'll be part of the analysis that'll go into determining which particular firm is selected. So that's where we are. We'll know very shortly which firm it is. We expect to move forward very rapidly and then get that information started. There'll be a lot of activity, a lot of information put out in August, and then probably some sort of public meeting about this in September. Part of the charrette will probably take place in September.
Do we have a sort of a date out there by which we'd like to bring this, the whole process to a conclusion?
Well, as I said, a major benchmark has to be reached by the end of September so they can proceed with their marketing plans. The actual regulation itself and the finishing and the adoption of that regulation can probably take place after that. That's all a town function that's got to go to the zoning commission. And once the public has input into that whole process, we want to make sure that happens as well. So that's probably not as important as making sure that initial vision that's sort of put in place and sort of formulated in September when the public gets together to talk about this, that's put together in a regulation. The actual coding itself is a lot of details and a lot of stuff that takes place after that. So that may take place sometime after September, maybe by the end of the year. Would work. But at least they'll know that that the entitlements, what they're called entitlements, will be in place. So if someone comes in and says, I have this great idea and here's what I want to do, as long as it's in keeping with the plan that's put in place in September, we'll be ready to move forward very smoothly with that. So.
And then, yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about putting regulations in place on that site? Based on what?
Based upon the vision that comes out of this.
Whose vision?
Everybody's vision. Hartford's vision. The Hartford's a very big part of this whole thing.
Do we have anything in writing with the Hartford? I keep asking this question and I never get an answer.
Yeah,
I assume we still don't have.
I answered you last time, but when we
So
go,
we're working on it.
when we go to contract,
Is that like your vision?
when we go to contract with a consultant,
Yeah.
that's when it'll be put in writing, and that'll probably be sometime in the next 2 weeks.
So within 2 weeks, we should see what's going to be put in writing, huh?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Hiram,
Yep.
really, at the end of the day, isn't the decision Hartford's?
Well,
Sure.
at any time they could decide to do something totally different. But I think that there is no question that they're interested in maximizing or optimizing the value of the property.
It's more than that, I think, if I can interject, and this is my opinion, and I emphasize my opinion. The Hartford's a publicly owned corporation, and a few years ago they were kicked in the shins by a fund manager from Minneapolis, Jim Paulson. You got to reorganize. You got too much fat, too much this, bippity boppity boo. Your diversification program didn't work out. You better do something, or I'm going to get active. Well, it stirred things up, and they're getting rid of obvious things that they've done. And at some point, they're again a publicly held corporation, and there's an expression: first bid, best bid. And I'm not saying a guy's going to open, but let's open a bowling alley and a Chuck E. Cheese or something nonsensical like that. But I think they have a definitive timeline in their mind that they want out. There'll be, I think, you were asking a signed agreement. I have to believe it's going to be, because all the consultants and I think everyone at that meeting agreed this is not going to be 6 months, maybe a year to 2. If everything works out wonderfully. I wonder if they have that amount of patience to do it, and everything that. See, I'm kind of against a charrette process. It works very well for the town center where land is involved, public use, and a variety. But this is a privately held building and private property, and to me, it's an economic and business-driven situation. We're not going to get into the consultants, but I was somewhat taken back with the idea of having another charrette equivalent to what we had in the village. It just seems apples and oranges to me.
I think that there's a number of things that are really important. I agree with you on most of what you said, Alan. I think that this is a public-private partnership. There's no question about that. The Hartford's been very good about agreeing to participate in this process and, in fact, fund a significant majority of the process. I assume that what Dave is talking about when he says something in writing is he's talking about funding this study, and that's what I'm talking about. That should be in 2 weeks. The crystallization of the vision for that property is going to come into focus, better focus, by the end of September. And everybody's going to be talked to about that. It's not just the public. It's going to be the developers that are involved in that. It's going to be the realtors. It's going to be the Hartford themselves. And all this is it's an incredibly delicate balance of what will happen with that property. But there's no question that everybody understands going in, have their eyes wide open as to who owns that property and what ought to happen there. No question about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if I can read into what you're implying, Dave, you're saying a written agreement that the village and the Hartford enter into an agreement that this will be agreed on a mutual basis, this will be a time frame on a mutual basis. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Well, I'm not trying to write the agreement. I just think that we're a very litigious society now, and lawyers always have agreements. Now, the agreement can be an agreement to agree, it can be, but something in writing with the Hartford, which we don't have. Now, you know, you can think of a million things that could be considered for that, okay? The Hartford obviously doesn't want to have any strings, I'm sure, to tie him down. But that shouldn't be the position of the town.
I think Hiram is spot on, that we'll have an agreement, 135 paid for by the Hartford, 30 paid for by Simsbury, and best efforts, and we're all going to pull together. But I don't think it's going to be anything hard. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'd like to see something, whatever we're agreeing to.
We might want to see something, but I think the reality is this is a private-public partnership.
Of course.
And look at, you know, we're trying to do our best. We're not going to be pinned down in writing to something.
Well, let me give you
a
a very minuscule point, okay? The town has voted to put $30,000 into the pot, and the Hartford's voted to put 170 or something. Right? I mean, isn't that what happens?
145, yeah.
So does that 30,000 go in first, in the middle, or at the end?
It's all worked out. They're going to be paid jointly. It's going to be set in the contract with the consultant, Dave.
I'm sure it's pari passu.
Steve wants, that's what you're going to end up getting.
Yeah.
You're going to end up.
I've been talking about this now for 5 months, okay? And it's always mañana, you know? It seems to me that's not a way to run a railroad.
There's a tremendous amount of
$30,000 and do nothing with it. Right?
Dave, it's going to be pari passu.
It's got nothing to do with the money. It's the principle of what's going on here, okay? That's, to me, the issue.
No, it sounds like you're frustrated that an agreement hasn't been reached within some time frame from when you asked the question. It's completely irrelevant. The fact is, the Hartford owns the land. What we're trying to do, the town has an interest in what happens with the land because we derive a lot of tax revenue from that land.
10%.
10%.
No, it's not 10%.
Thank you, Alan.
Of the commercial.
We have a significant interest in what happens with that piece of land because we want to see some tax revenue continue to come from that land. The objective is to put out a welcome mat. Tell the world what can be done on this piece of property. You expressed a concern about the plan to create some regulations. They're enabling regulations that should be applied there. They're designed to explain to the interested parties, the potential buyers or users of that land, what could be done there to project that this piece of land isn't just like every other large parcel around the United States. This one has had thought applied to it. This one has a town government that supports development along these lines. If this matches your needs, we're going to help you significantly to make that a successful endeavor there. It's a tremendous opportunity for the town to have the Hartford willing to work with us, to be able to throw a small amount of money, $30,000 relative to the amount of tax revenue that is at risk, is a pittance. To require some kind of elaborate written agreement, I don't understand what would be in the agreement. The agreement is we need to market the property. It's going to cost a lot of money. We have $175,000 currently allocated to that. Here's how we're going to whack that up. What more needs to be written down?
How long is this going to be in effect?
Who cares?
How long is
who cares? Come on, you sound like the big Y now.
It's $30,000, Dave. There's no more money after that. We're talking about marketing. I don't know who the buyer is yet. I don't know when the buyer is going to show up to buy it.
We don't know anything.
Do you?
Of course not. That's why I'm asking the questions.
But you're talking about selling a piece of real estate or finding someone to lease it.
Or accepting
There's no
it as
timeline
a donation or as a gift to the town, right?
I think that...
Is that a possibility?
I'm not going to rule in or out any possibility in the future.
That's the whole point of the discussion, that's all.
I can tell you this, that from my point of view is that our idea is always to continue on with the same or greater tax revenue to the town for that property. There's a lot of really good ideas about whether it ought to be a community college or a university or whatever, and that's fine, but they're tax-exempt entities a lot of times. So we need to be very careful about that. And that's why this discussion, these consultants are sophisticated. They were not born yesterday. They understand the real estate market. They understand that this is a public-private partnership. And they understand that everybody, including the property owner, is going to have an active part of this whole discussion. So that's all going to go into it. We're not, just like the town center, people were very negative, or at least some people were very negative about initially, but we got no negative pushback about how that came out. So just give the process a chance to work. And I think that everybody understands exactly where we're going in terms of trying to make the parties, all satisfied with the product. So I think we have a very tight time frame, but we're very knowledgeable, or aware at least, of what the different entities want.
But also, I think just to Dave's question, what's going to happen, which happens in every time you sign an agreement with a consultant, what's going to happen is they're going to sign an agreement that says, here's what we require back. Here's the fee schedule. Here's how you're going to pay out that fee. I think that's, you want to know, how is the town going to allocate their $30,000? What are they going to get for it in return, and how long?
Sure, I'm not interested in the agreement that's made with a consultant. I'm interested in the relationship for this public-private thing that Hiram keeps talking about, just the understanding of where we're going with that, what's the town's position on it. We know what the Hartford's position is on it, but let's put something in writing, that's all. That sounds pretty simple to me.
Well, maybe I could, if I could help. Good morning. I had another meeting, so I couldn't be here earlier. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I just caught part of your question, Dave. So
it's the same question, Mary. I've been asking for 6 months.
So maybe just reframe it one time, because I
do we have anything in writing with the Hartford on what the committee you have now formed in this relationship, on who's going to do what the time frame is, why we're doing it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Something in writing. That's my question.
That's a good question. So when we were first, not to take you back, but when we were first approached by the Hartford in March and talking about spinning off their businesses, which they have a right to do, we immediately tried to work with them and said, we'd like you to stay in Simsbury. We formed a group to talk about incentives, if necessary, things that the town could do, moving with the state, bringing in DCD to talk about what we could do to keep them in Simsbury. We then met with the potential buyers of the spin-off companies, and I know you were part of that, and EDC was part of that, to convince them that staying in Simsbury was the right thing to do. So we were completely focused on keeping Hartford and Simsbury. Put a lot of resources into that, did a lot of research, brought in counsel, did some studies on what we could do, brought in the state. The Hartford has a right to sell off their businesses. That's
sure.
The market. The fact that they told us before it was public, or as soon as they could publicly tell us, I think was a good sign because of our good relationship with Hartford. So that was our first focus. When the Prudential and now Mutual made the decisions to stay on their own campuses because of economic reasons rather than staying in Simsbury, that started a whole different conversation. We all know the severity of that decision on the town. So we immediately started continued having conversations with Hartford, the Board of Selectmen, the EDC, the Board of Finance, because there are a lot of ripple effects to this decision. They had two choices, the Hartford. One was to hire a broker and to keep Simsbury informed when they sold the property. They have a right to do that. That's typically how businesses operate. That's what Wagner's doing. The Wagner property is, there's discussions. The town's not privy to those discussions. When there's an application filed, we get involved. Now sometimes folks who are potential developers come in and talk to us confidentially about what could happen, and we respond. But there's no partnership with developers. We don't have a partnership where we sit and we wait. We wait for them to bring us something, and then we react. And talking with staff and Hiram put a lot of hard work in, and with a lot of our Board of Selectmen members and Board of Finance members and with some of the EDC members, we talked about how can we do this differently, because we don't want to just sit back and wait for them to get rid of their employees and reallocate their employees and tell us who's going to buy the property. We want to be at the table with them, talking about what are the possibilities for that site. It's 655,000 square feet of building, It's 172 acres of building. In the state of Connecticut since what year was it, 2000, there's only been 1 million square feet of office space built in the state of Connecticut. So when you compare the severity of the situation that we are in with the state of Connecticut, we know we have a problem. We approached the Hartford and said, here's an idea. Rather than us sitting back and waiting for you to bring things to us, how can we be at the table? We have an idea that might work. You hire a broker, because they were going to hire a broker. They have a right to hire a broker. We have no say in that. But once you hire that broker, we'd like that broker to sit with some consultants and talk about.
Excuse me.
That's okay. That's all right.
I have a sick wife.
I know you do.
Pardon me.
I'll wait for you. Because I think it's important that we all have a conversation. So.
Hello.
So.
Yes.
But anyway, so does anyone else have any questions while I'm kind of explaining how we got to this point? Okay. And I know I want to thank Jay and Alan for contacting us to express interest in being on the subcommittee, and Alan's representing the subcommittee. So that's, Jay, why we didn't have you in the interview.
Okay.
But we'll all be involved as well.
But, Mary, one of the things that you brought up at that meeting was the importance underlined to Simsbury of getting this right.
Well, at least trying, Alan. Yeah,
At least
doing
trying.
something
Okay,
different.
but we
want to get it right.
But it's
we don't
all
know.
best efforts. It's
We don't
all
know.
best efforts.
It is. It is. So.
End of story.
So we came up with this idea, and Hiram researched it. We have experience, and even during the interviews, I know Mark and Alan heard some of the comments about Simsbury has a good track record, and it's going to be attractive to developers because we have experience in changing regulations through a public-private partnership, and we have credibility. So that's very attractive to developers who might want to do something different on the property. So we said, how about if we have a consultant hired? We got some cost estimates. The consultant will work with the Hartford, the town, the broker, potential developers. The consultants have networks of developers that they work with all across the country. They have clients that are looking for big pieces of property. They would look at this parcel, come up with ideas of what it could be used for, look at their client list, contact other clients, work with the brokers to expand the universe of marketing, and say, here's what we think we could do in Simsbury. The Hartford was very open to the suggestion. They took the idea back. They came back. We estimated, what it would cost. They had no problem with the price tag, but they said to us they wanted the town to have a part in it and a financial piece in it so that the town felt it was important. So we went back to the Board of Selectmen. We came up with this proposal where I think they're paying $170,000 or up to.
Ours is 30, Mary. Theirs is 145.
Right, 145. So 170, about the same thing. There's certain things that we felt were important, and why we put the funding in is because the public will be part of this as well. We're going to have conversations with the public. The public may want the land to be donated, as you said. A cornfield there now on part of it. Maybe the town wants it. Important to put that on the table. Will the Hartford do that? I don't know. It's they have shareholders, whether they'll do it or not. But they're going to be at the table. They're going to hear these ideas. The town needs funding because we're going to have to set up those meetings. We're going to have to pay for food, things that need to be done that we can't expect the Hartford to fund 100%. Do we have a written contract with the Hartford? That's the question. No, we do not. We do not have a written contract with the Hartford. We would never have a written contract with the Hartford. There's nothing to write down. They can do whatever they want. We will have a written contract with the consultant about what the consultant will do for the town in Hartford with time frames, schedules, time frames, and also outcomes. And we will have that before we retain anybody. In the meantime, the Hartford can continue doing what the market says they can do. They can go out and market their property, and that's what they're doing. So there's nothing that we can do to stop them from doing that. There's nothing we can require them to write down that asks them to do anything other than their good faith effort of what they're doing now, which is working with the town and meeting with the public over their property. They have no obligation to talk to any taxpayer or any town official about what they want to do with their property. None. And the fact that they are willing to do it, and they're willing to delay some of their marketing until this process is done, and that's why it's so important that we get it done quickly, I think shows goodwill, it shows good faith, and it shows commitment to do something right with the property, get back to Alan's point. So I don't know if that's helpful or not. You may disagree or not agree, but I wanted to give you the options of what, erase our proposal. Just erase it, for a moment, say, take it off the table that we didn't do it. What would be happening right now? That's what I want you to understand.
The same thing.
No, nothing. What would be happening right now is that Hartford would be over.
We don't even know what the Hartford's doing. And no reason we should know, and we have no right to know.
But you're a businessman. You came from a company in Simsbury.
Look, Mary, I was here when we brought the Hartford into town.
I know that.
Okay? It was a big deal. They've been very good for the town. They've been good taxpayers, a lot of jobs. This is not a condemnation or a criticism of the Hartford. They're moving on.
Right.
Okay, they're moving on. They've got their own responsibilities, as Alan says, to the shareholders. We all know that.
Right.
We have responsibilities to the town.
Absolutely.
That's all. So if we don't have anything in writing, I don't want to see the town get involved in something ipso facto because it just happens.
Well, we haven't spent any money.
Well,
we haven't spent any money.
I understand,
and
but
before we spend any money, we will have a contract. And I think Hiram already said that earlier. We're not authorized to spend money without a contract. We don't do that in any other situation. We don't hire companies without a contract. It's just
But there'll be plenty more discussion on this issue, and it'll be public as this unfolds over the next couple of months. So everybody will be in the loop.
I'm sure you reported that, the subcommittee interviewed the consultants, and once a decision is made, that decision will be communicated to the EDC, the Board of Finance, and go to the Board of Selectmen for approval. In that approval process,
You'll see the consultant will lay out what they're going to be doing
Exactly.
and what the time frame is and all that kind of stuff.
the
So
fee
it'll be
schedule.
highly visible on what the process is.
like we did that with our previous planning studies. We have certain benchmarks and certain timeframes and outcomes, and those contracts are not paid until the deliverables are met. So it's complicated and it's confusing and it's stressful and it's scary, but I think the town is being proactive. And I think the boards are all working together with the Hartford. The Hartford is interested in working with us, more importantly, because they don't have to. And I think we're doing everything we can do in terms of involving the state, the public, the broker, the consultants with large national networks of clients. It's really an exciting opportunity to get something really great there. The only thing you can't predict is change, right? I mean, things change, companies come in, companies leave. Connecticut is not a good environment for companies, so we're moving some of our companies out of Connecticut. So we have a lot. We're not competing with our nearby towns, we're competing with other states. So we have a lot of work to do.
Mary?
Yeah.
I just want to, I'm conflicted on the Hartford decision in general, but I do want to add something about charrettes in general, not specifically related. Normally when a business comes into town, there are regulations that prevent them from doing something. They say, they evaluate, should I approach for a variance, should I approach to change the regulations, should I approach to change the zoning laws? And they go and think with this not knowing what the public wants. Will there be massive opposition to their suggestion? The advantage of a charrette is you go to the public and say, here, these are all the possibilities. What are you excited about? What would you love? And so then a developer can come in and say, hey, I already know I've got community support. That's not one obstacle I need to overcome. So charrettes in general help build community support, and that is advantageous to new businesses. And that's why you do it, because it takes one obstacle away from them. It lets them know what the community wants, what the town is willing to do and willing to support. So it is an incentive to businesses, and that's why we do charrettes in general.
Lisa, maybe I could, I think what you say has merit, but there's an obstacle, and this is our largest taxpayer. There might be other businesses that are thinking of maybe leaving Simsbury. It's a beautiful community, but maybe it isn't the most convenient place to locate a business. We got to get this right. We're going to lose, in my opinion, potentially a greater amount of commercial tax money. And that's going to be reflected. I don't know, I got my tax bill a couple weeks ago. I guess most of the people here did. Taxes ain't going down if this happens. And I think it's great to have everyone, gather together in a campfire, have a charrette and talk, this great idea, that great idea. But your tax bill is going to go north, probably significantly, if these things come to pass.
Well,
and if we get this right, I think we could all
Let's hope we do, and in the interest of time, I think we have to bring this to a conclusion. So I'm sure, as I said, we'll have more discussion on this in the next couple of months.
Probably 2 years.
Whatever it is, well, I hope for the best outcome for the town and for the Hartford. With that, a motion for adjournment. Second, all in favor? Thank you very much.
See each other August 8th?
Yep.
Hey, the bike club just stopped me. They said, why Main Street found they're waiting to the meeting. A lot of the stuff is happening down.
The only issue with that is, originally when this was one general conference, but be really careful.
But there's events happening.
Sorry about the phone.